All right, NFL Week 16, early bets, early leans, early things to consider. I already did guess the spread over on my TikTok. It's time to start making some bets, making some statements. I will say this. I think a lot of these lines are correct. And then the ones that might not be correct are injury dependent. You look at Mahomes, you look at Geno Smith. And then there's another cluster of lines here that, in my opinion, you don't necessarily need to grab right now. An example of that would be, say, Detroit -7. I think I like Detroit -7. However, you don't need to, in my opinion, you don't need to jump and go grab that right now, because if that thing gets to 7.5, I think there'll be plenty of buyback on Chicago at +7.5 that you could still get your 7. So, that's something to me. I don't see a lot of lines right now that it's like, drop everything, go get this. This is going to be on the move. This is just flat out wrong. So with that said, yeah, like I say, look at Detroit -7. I took a little piece on Detroit -7. I think when we just look, like, Detroit was laying 10.5. I know the line eventually went down to like 9, even 8 at some places on Thanksgiving Day. To me, it really was about the fact that Detroit took their foot off the gas in that second half. We flipped the home fields. It's about right, but I really just like Detroit to bounce back against Chicago, and I think Chicago is just still pretty weak. I went ahead too and looked at the 10-day forecast in Chicago as well. It was something like 29 degrees, partly cloudy. Winds got as high as 10. Wind would be, my worry, because we know Goff indoors versus outdoors. But I will say Detroit is a really physical football team. We all know the stats of after teams play Detroit, all that sort of stuff. So they should profile better as an outdoor team than some of our assumptions, especially with Goff. I mean, this is a physical Detroit team, and they're going to have a rest advantage here because Chicago's Monday Night Football. We haven't seen them yet. And, I know their defense, they're really banged up. Detroit is really, really banged up, but they're a team that their ceiling, they could pick their number against Chicago if they really wanted to. And I think after seeing what happened in that second half against Thanksgiving, they'll be less inclined to take their foot off the gas like they did there. So again, you don't have to go jump and grab it right now, because I do think there's buyback. You got to make sure you get -110, especially early in the week. There's no sense of laying, -115 on the 7, which I see in the market a little bit here. So that's one I circled. Another one I circled, which I think could get some buyback, and if we wait here, is Indianapolis, -4.5 at Tennessee. Hosting Tennessee. This Tennessee team, brutal against the spread. And Indianapolis, they got a lot of money against Denver, right? That was kind of a sharp pick. And, the line went their direction. But I keep saying with Indianapolis, like, you can't bet them if you think that the opposing team's offense can exploit the soft, Gus Bradley zone. I don't think Tennessee can really do that, no matter who they play at quarterback. But I do think Tennessee, they've kind of been a team that the big bettors like. I liked Tennessee earlier in the year. I thought they were better than how they'd been playing, but the reality is they do turn the ball over when they at crucial times. And so I do think I took a little bit of a bite of Indianapolis -4.5, just a tiny bit, to say, I did it because I'm doing this, early bets type of thing. But I do think there's gonna be buyback on Tennessee. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing closes like 3.5, and you can grab Indy 3.5 later in the week. So, that to me, and I also think the Indianapolis Denver score, bit of a deceiving result. If I just pull up the box score here against Denver, right? They lose 31-13. But the actual team stats here, Indianapolis, 310 yards total to Denver's 193. Passing, Indianapolis 161 to Denver's 121. Rushing, Indianapolis 149 to Denver's 72. So I like to bet games where I think that there was a bit of a faulty box score the week before, and your assumptions aren't, can kind of cloud your assumptions a little bit. So I'm actually interested what the look-ahead line for this would be. So let me pull up Week 16 NFL look-ahead lines. NFL look-ahead lines. It's very easy to do. I always recommend doing an exercise like this. Just helps you get an idea of what a team, what we thought they were the week before, and then what changed. So Indianapolis and Tennessee. So it's going to be 4, I believe. No, the look-ahead was 3.5. So I guess, Indy moved a little bit. I feel like that's more of a downgrade on Tennessee. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I'm going to keep my eye on here. Let me just look here. Hold on. Where's Indy? Where's Indy? I want to check. I'm double checking what these lines were. Yeah. Oh, okay. One of these look aheads is 4.5. So regardless, this is also a dead area, right? 4.5. Say it moves to 5. I'm wrong. You can still bet 5, like 4.5 and 5. Not a huge difference. Dead area there. Let's talk about some of the premier games that a lot of people are going to be wanting to bet. A lot of people are going to be talking about. So one of them is going to be Philadelphia and Washington. If you look, these two teams played on a Thursday night game, and Philly was a 4.5 point favorite at home. I believe it actually opened like 3 and Philly got money. So let's just say, 4.5 there. Philly was at home. So that means they're about 3 on a neutral, right? Home field's 1.5, 2, and especially in the division, not a lot. And so it says 3 on a neutral. So now we flipped the home field. Washington is at home now. That should be Washington. That should be Philly minus like 1.5 if we just go by that. But a lot has changed. I think since then, Philly has ascended. Washington's, kind of regressed a little bit. And so now you get Philly here. Washington got hit as I was from guess the spread till now. I see a 3 out there, Philly minus 3. I don't want to play Philly after the big win against Pittsburgh and after a lot of people just got burned with New Orleans coming through the back door against Washington. So I do think that line, it's kind of what you believe. Do you believe these two teams are closer power rated wise to what it was earlier in the season? It was like November 12th or something they played, or, to now, which we think Philly has definitely taken some steps to be indeed better than Washington. So that, yeah, I mean, if it's 3.5, pretty much mostly across the market, which tells you Philly's 5 better on a neutral, I think that's about fair. I honestly do. Another one that a lot of people will be talking about is Pittsburgh at Baltimore. So Baltimore here is going to be laying, what's the number here? Baltimore is laying, why isn't this popping up on my screen? Oh yeah, Baltimore is, the Saturday game. That's why it was buried. Baltimore is laying 6.5 at home to Pittsburgh. So these two teams played, again, not too long ago in Pittsburgh. Baltimore was laying 3.5 at Pittsburgh, which tells you on a neutral, about 5, okay? Tomlin's really good as a dog, all that sort of stuff. We'll call it 5 on a neutral. Now we go to Baltimore, home field, 1.5 to 2. You get to 6.5. This line's correct. So this is going to be classic again. Are you betting Tomlin because he's outstanding as a dog, and Pittsburgh off the loss? It's funny. Tomlin as a dog loses, and then he's a dog the next week. It also rarely happens. What I have here, and when I looked it up, it's only happened 9 times. And Tomlin is 6-3 ATS in a spot like that. So again, I think the line's correct. But I do think Pittsburgh has kind of been, this is what they do. They turn teams over. I actually live bet Philly in the Pittsburgh game after Pittsburgh turned Philly over twice and they only got like 3 points out of it. And I said, if you can't capitalize off those turnovers, Philadelphia is moving the ball far better. I got them live at 6.5. I think that's kind of the story for Pittsburgh. They're going to turn teams over and they got to capitalize on it. So I think that line's actually right. If you were betting Baltimore, I wouldn't blame you. It's calling the Steelers potentially a fraud. If you're betting Pittsburgh and saying, look, Tomlin is a dog, 6.5, I wouldn't blame you either. Another one I'm kind of looking at here, I try my best not to bet Thursday night football, but Denver and LA Chargers, that is, the line's at 3. I would love it to go to 3.5 and take Denver. I would really like that. I would be comfortable with that. I worry about Herbert being banged up. I worry that this Chargers schedule has gotten more difficult later in the year. And Denver just, I like Denver. I like what they do. And again, I said it was a faulty box score against Indianapolis, but 3.5 to me. I told you in early bets last week that I like the Buccaneers plus 3 at the Chargers. I would also then guess I'd say I like Denver plus 3.5, but I'd want to get 3.5, especially if I'm betting Thursday night football. I'm never in a rush to bet Thursday night football. Another one I have circled, and this is because I just love this team. I think they're continue to get underrated. It is Tampa Bay. They're laying 4 at Dallas. Looks like Dallas might, it's about 4 in the market. I do see a 3.5. To me, you know, everyone's in a rush to bet Carolina last week against Dallas. They moved from a 1 point favorite to 3.5, almost at close. And Dallas wins, and it's like all of a sudden it's like, oh no, now we like Dallas. Now Dallas like has passed the test. We think they're good now. It's like everyone just bet Carolina. If you bet the Cowboys, tip the cap, but that's what happened according to the market. So now you get Tampa Bay here, who I think is really good, and I continue to think that they're underrated because I think people forgot about them when they got the injuries to Godwin and Evans, and Vita Vea has been a force in the middle for them, and I just think that people are sleeping a little bit on Tampa Bay. This look ahead line was 3.5. Tampa Bay minus 3.5 at Dallas. Buccaneers get a great win on the road against the Chargers, and Dallas beats a Carolina team who isn't great. And, this thing moves to 4. So to me, Tampa Bay, like I think of when Cooper Rush first came in, right? Dak first got hurt. Houston laid like 7.5 at Dallas. Philly laid like 7.5 at Dallas. And I think Tampa Bay deserves the respect to lay a little bit more there. But I do think there's going to be some Dallas money. So I think you can wait. So basically what I'm saying here, Tampa Bay, Detroit, Indy, what I like when I look at the board, but I don't think you need to be in a rush to get it. I would monitor this market and see what happens. Other than that, that's what I'm looking at this week. Should be an exciting week in the league. Funny thing, right? Is Jameis Winston going to start for Cleveland? It's like Cleveland is a good. Jameis Winston as a dog gives you the potential to win the game outright because he pushes the ball deep, he puts pressure on defenses, but he also puts you in jeopardy of throwing 7 picks and putting you in a horrendous situation. So I actually think Dorian Thompson-Robinson, that certainly makes their ceiling go down. But if you like that stability of, maybe less interceptions. I mean, Dorian Thompson-Robinson hasn't been flawless, turning the ball over either. So that's an interesting one. Cincinnati, it's just their defense is so horrific. If it's Winston, they're live to come through the back door there against Cincinnati. So that's another thing to monitor. That's what I got here. Look, sometimes the lines are right. Sometimes there's too much lack of information on a Monday. I think you can kind of watch this market and read this market and think for yourself. But I told you those are the 3 things I'm looking at right now. Tampa Bay, Detroit, and Indianapolis. We'll see how the market moves. Enjoy your Week 16. We got Saturday games now, which conflict with college football. I don't like that, but it is what it is. Week 16, monitor the markets and enjoy.